Happiness is an inside job. At Happy Healthy You, Connie Bowman helps us find our way with inspiring conversations and healthy ideas for living a whole life in mind, body and spirit. Happy Healthy You. And now, here's Connie.
Welcome to Happy Healthy You, the podcast. I'm Connie Bowman, your host. Thank you so much for listening. I love that I have longtime listeners like you and new listeners like you. Yeah, I'm talking to everybody. So whether you're new or you've been around for a long time, thank you so much for listening to the podcast. And thank you also for supporting Blue Planet Eyewear. It's our new sponsor, and I love them because they're eco-friendly, they're socially responsible, they make really cute, really cute sunglasses and readers for men, women, and kids. And every single pair sold gives a pair of glasses to a person in need through their Visualize Change program. So go to their website if you have a chance, and if you're in the market for readers or sunglasses, blueplaneteyewear.com, and you can use our special Happy Healthy You discount code Connie20. Okay, that's it. I'm done with that. But I really do like Blue Planet, so I had to get that out there first. And I also want to give a shout out to Maisha McAllister. You guys know I have two loves, aside from my family and, God and all that important stuff, yoga and my acting career. Those are kind of my two fun things that I do in life, my joy. And I went to a film festival this past weekend with my sister. Shout out to Sally. I love you, Sally. She's the best. She went with me to support me, and we had a really good time. But while we were there, she told me about a good friend of hers, a fellow yogi, Maisha McAllister, who started teaching yoga in Baltimore City. And she's teaching children. And just this morning, I read a post, and she's been sort of posting on Facebook about her journey with these kids in these really challenging life situations, right? So this morning she posted that one of the children, their mom had died the week before. One of the children in her class had been evicted and was living in a hotel. And another one she described as a pacer, just had so much going on in their head and their little bodies that they just couldn't settle down, so they would pace back and forth. And I thought, oh my gosh, what a gift this woman, Maisha, thank you so much. I can't wait to meet you. We haven't even met, but I feel like I know you. What a great gift she's giving these children in these situations, that most of us can only imagine. She's giving them the gift of mindfulness and the gift of yoga. So thank you for that. And that is a natural little segue to my guest today. I'm so happy to have Lori Cameron back on the podcast. She's been on before. She is so many things, but she's the founder and CEO of Purpose Blue, an organization that brings evidence-based mindful leadership programs to companies, change makers, culture shifters, universities, and federal agencies. And she has a new book out, you guys. I'm so excited to have her here to talk about her new book, The Mindful Day, Practical Ways to Find Focus, Calm, and Joy from Morning Till Evening. Hi, Lori. Thank you for coming back.
It's so nice to come home to your studio and be with you again.
Yeah, we've had some good times on the podcast before.
We have.
So I'm excited about your book. You have it. You're publishing with National Geographic. Tell me all about how that came about, because we have a lot of catching up to do here.
I know, it's so exciting. I'm so honored to be with such an old brand, that's so beloved in the U.S. and around the world. And it's one of those early brands that I knew as a little kid. I knew National Geographic and Disney. And it's just so wonderful to be with them and have their support and help and encouragement. And it's interesting. A lot of people they ask me, National Geographic is doing the ultimate guide to mindfulness. Why are they doing that? I thought they were into exploring the seas. And what's wonderful is that National Geographic has always been on the frontier of exploration of all new edges, new frontiers in science, and they really wanted a rigorously researched book on the science of mindfulness and compassion. And they didn't want it necessarily from an academic or, a monk or nun in a monastery. They wanted it from just a regular person has a long time mindfulness practice, but who, is living and, out with the rest of us, who, is raising a family, making school lunches in the morning, working in the business world, so that I could filter the teachings and science of mindfulness through the lens of modern everyday living. So that's the point of the book.
Very cool. So did you know someone there? Did they just find you because of all your extensive teaching? And
my editor, Hilary Black, one of the senior editors there in their books division, she had the vision for a book on mindfulness, and she spoke to a number of different people and said, I'm looking for someone. I'm looking for the right person to do this. And someone recommended me, and we had great conversation, and I developed a book proposal, and here we are.
I love the idea of the mindful day. There have been so many books written on mindfulness, but I'm all about the practicality of this thing because, can I just tell you? Can I just unload a little bit?
Just tell me.
So I went to bed pretty early last night. I had taught a yoga class and I was kind of tired, so I just took a bath and I got in bed and started reading, and I'm like, I'm going to go to bed. It was like 9:30. That never happens. But anyway, I went to sleep. 3 o'clock in the morning, and boom, I'm wide awake. Wide awake. And I have been sort of feeling a little bit like a fraud because I teach mindfulness and yoga, and I don't have a regular practice. I'm sort of haphazard about it. So I wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I don't know if I ever told you, but I did the 10-day silent Vipassana retreat, the Buddhist retreat. Okay, so that's happened.
Great, Connie.
So anyway, as you know, in that retreat, you get up at 4 in the morning and you meditate for 2 hours, and then you have breakfast, and it's all day meditation. So
right.
I have that in my mind, that not that I'm going to go back to that, but I want an early morning practice. And so anyway, I got up at 3 and, kind of putzed around a little bit, and then I sat, and I had the hardest time getting into my practice. It took me a good 20 minutes before I settled in. And I thought, I am really out of practice. And I started chastising myself and doing, being unkind to myself. And so I love this idea that you have brought practical ways to, as your subtitle says, to find focus, calm, and joy from morning to evening. Because that's what I need, doggone it. I need the practical. I need you to just tell me what I need to do.
I so appreciate that, all of that, the waking up, the idea to sit and take a crack at it, right? To create some space and just show up. And I think, first of all, I want to applaud you for that.
Thank you.
Just sitting there. I mean, for 20 minutes, you hung in there, and maybe it sounds like then you kind of got into kind of a space where you felt okay.
Yeah, it took a good 20 minutes. So.
And that's okay. Because there's no... I think sometimes we grade ourselves. Did I do it well? Do I get an A on meditation today? Do I get a D? Did I fail it? Did I not do it at all?
Right.
And one of the things we're learning, which is very different than how we're conditioned in our society, is to not judge ourselves and to not judge others, but to just show up with a kind, gentle awareness. So I just want to applaud you for that. And then the other piece is... for many of us, both seasoned mindfulness and meditation practitioners and people that are brand new, we have a belief. We have very busy, very scheduled lives. We're very committed to many projects, and we think, I just cannot fit one more thing into the day. So this book was written to introduce mindfulness practices and tools and micro practices and small slivers of ways to come into your body or to come into your heart in the day that you already have.
I love it. I love it. I just want to start here. I took a quote from your book, and it reads, "Mindfulness is the first step in releasing pain points, navigating complexity, and planting seeds for greater collaboration." And I wonder if we can kind of start there and begin picking that apart. So the first step in releasing pain points. Can we start there?
So,
how does that work?
Yeah, and it's interesting. I think this quote, if I remember, might come from this section on work.
Okay.
Because
I was thinking about
it works. That quote works in any part of our life.
Well, I was thinking about
points.
those children. Those children that Maisha is working with in Baltimore City.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about how she's really healing these children with mindfulness and yoga, and I don't know. It's kind of stood out to me to start
absolutely,
with.
And that's why I actually love that you pulled that quote out, because hearing it by itself like that actually brought up a lot of different things. So our pain points, whether they're physical pain or emotional pain, both are stored in the body. Emotional pain is imprinted in our tissues. There's a great body of work on that. And Mindfulness Step One helps us cultivate awareness of our conditioning and our pain and even our trauma that we're holding on to, that we're often acting out of. We behave from our pain and suffering. We move towards certain things. We move away from certain things. We're irritable in certain moments, where we constrict or we play it small in others, all from our past pains. So mindfulness helps us recognize and see these pain points and then meet them with compassion. Mm-hmm. And when we learn to be compassionate with ourselves, and I have a really lovely 3-step process for that, only then we start to release that, and then we can connect with others better. So that's that precursor to collaboration is being okay with yourself. Mm-hmm. So if I'm peaceful in myself, I'm more confident, I can connect with you, I can hear your ideas, I can let go of needing to be right, I can serve, whether it's in the school system or in a religious organization or on the homeless, streets in DC. That's where I can serve from when I'm okay.
So releasing these pain points, I know just from my personal experience in the Vipassana practice, the 10-day retreat that I went on, the first couple of days were the hardest, and that's what they told us, that was where we were actually releasing like some deep wounds, or
that's right.
or actually that was the beginning where the little stuff that was more on the surface came up, right? And then as you get later on in the practice, and I'm sure in this book you have much more research on how that actually works, and we probably don't have time to go into that now, but it's pretty fascinating, actually. Thomas Keating calls it divine therapy. Sitting with contemplation, and I'm sure you studied with Thich Nhat Hanh. I'm sure he has some words that he uses to describe the same healing.
Yeah,
effects.
That healing and releasing and letting go. And I wanted to comment on a couple things. You talked about this Vipassana or Vipassana retreat, and at the heart of those type of retreats is being able to access insight. So that's an insight meditation tradition. And insight is what I was referring to when we sit quietly and sit with ourselves and we start to access that inner wisdom. Mm-hmm. And insight is about that aha or that epiphany or that discovery of, oh, wow, I'm really hurting here in this area, or I'm really feeling lonely. We each have different patterns. For some of us, we tend to feel overwhelmed all the time. For others, we feel isolated or alone. Some of us tend to feel not good enough or not enough. So when we sit with ourselves, we gain more insight, and then we can meet that with loving kindness. Mm-hmm. And the other thing you mentioned that I just love and want to call out is that it takes a few days to settle in, to kind of drop below the surface of the choppy waves. And that is why I call my company Purpose Blue. So the blue in the Purpose Blue is about the deep blue, the calm blue beneath the surface, that when we sit and either, it could be a minute, it could be walking in the woods, it could be different ways that we access that depth of calmness, that place of peace and stillness that we all have inside. When we drop below that, that's the beautiful reward. That is the divine therapy. And we just need to give ourselves time. So when I was thinking about you, this in the middle of the night, in the 20 minutes, where it was still choppy, I was just imagining you, on the surface of the ocean. It was maybe a lot of turbulence, maybe a lot of thoughts are in your mind right now or things going on. And we just, we're just there with patience and kindness while we ride those waves. And then as we bring this kind attention to our breath and our body and our hearts, we slowly start to quiet and access the stillness.
Beautiful. So thank you for talking about that, the releasing the pain points. The second part of this triad that you have here is navigating complexity. And that seems like that would apply to not only us personally, but the business world where you spend so much time training and helping people with mindfulness.
Absolutely. And, the military actually came up with a handy acronym called VUCA. They say it's a VUCA world. It's volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And, I think that's a really useful phrase because we can acknowledge that things are really volatile. They're very turbulent and they're very uncertain. So we can't predict forward very far like we used to be able to. We just can't. And we can see that on the nightly news and we can see it around the conference table. And then this complexity that you're speaking about comes out of that uncertainty and volatility and the fact that we're all connected. It's such a global world and a global market that a move in one industry or one geography ripples through to the others. So to be in business these days requires a whole different level of competency and capacity. It used to be more, if I learn the right strategies and I can articulate a vision and I have the right, blueprint and roadmap for success. It was more like, what are the deliverables and things I need to do out there? And now what we find is that it really comes down to the agility of the individual human being. Like we as people need to be instruments of flexibility, emotional awareness, self-awareness, compassion for all the stakeholders in the value chain of our business. That's called conscious capitalism or conscious leadership. So we're seeing a real shift in the mindsets of leaders who thrive in the complex world today and in their capacity to be aware of themselves and others. It's like a real-time dynamic now. You can't sit in the back. You can't have a strategic offsite and do a 5-year roadmap nowadays. You have to be on it, sensing what's happening in the ecosystem minute by minute, day by day.
So it sounds to me like empathy.
Yeah, absolutely. I spent the last 2 days with a group of leaders in Northern Virginia, and we spent a lot of time talking about empathy because empathy is an innate capacity. We're all born with that right out of the box, but it can be strengthened and cultivated. This is our ability to sense the experience of another human being while maintaining our own discernment, our own sense of self and our own sense of who we are, not getting swept up and swept away in emotions. And so this mindfulness really helps with that. The part of the brain that's trained and strengthened with mindfulness meditation, particularly the body scan, is the same part of the brain, that's the insula, that's strengthened and that's related to our ability to be empathetic. Taking the insula to the gym is what we did yesterday. That's right. And what's so cool about that is when Google did a study of all their teams and looked at their most highest performing teams, and they had all these theories about what made, their top team successful. What they found is the number one thing that made their team successful was psychological safety. And that is the degree to which leaders and the members of the team create conditions for people to be able to be vulnerable and to take risk and to experiment and to fail. And empathy and being conscious and mindful and present and tuned into others with compassion is the how. That's how you create psychological safety.
And when you said that, it just called to mind for me all the hallmarks of a really healthy family system, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
I mean, how great would it be if we have those safety nets in place so that we can take take
Yes.
healthy risks, and I'm not talking about unhealthy risks, but take a little
Absolutely.
risk and have
And try.
try and it's okay if we fail, right?
Yes.
So,
Gosh, I love that you brought that up. And I've shared that study in a number of companies and organizations. And maybe people were thinking what you were thinking. They haven't said it out loud. And it just really struck me because I'm so aware of that there are family systems where kids are afraid to fail and where kids are, or if they do try and they miss the mark set by the parents, there's really strong repercussions. And in our area here in the Washington, D.C. area, I'm very tuned in to the stress and the teenage anxiety that is just an epidemic. It's actually across the U.S., but we can really feel it here. And I think about what would it be like if these kids were nurtured in psychologically safe families? That would be, we'd be experiencing something quite different.
Yeah. And then the final of this three that you talk about, what is mindfulness, planting seeds for greater collaboration. How does mindfulness allow us to plant seeds for greater collaboration?
So mindfulness involves a set of skills and a set of mindsets. So a lot of people think, okay, mindfulness is about focusing attention. And it is. It's about paying attention with intention, on purpose, in the present moment, without judgment. So that's mindfulness. But this without judgment piece is big. And that really means with an open mind, with an open, curious mind. And that is not easy. If you think about when you're listening to a family member or a colleague from a different function or even someone on your team, often we are not always fully listening with openness and curiosity. We're sort of comparing what they're saying to the way we see it or to our ideas or to what we know.
Running it through the filters.
Yeah,
right?
we're running it through the filters, and that's often unconscious. And it's really hard to cultivate an open and curious mind. And when we can do that, and there's another mindset shift here, shifting from I or me to we, or as Dr. Dan Siegel says, to MWE, MWE, he calls
that's
it.
cool.
When we can have that kind of an orientation to being in a brainstorming meeting, then we're planting the seeds. We're preparing the ground for collaboration. Because if I see all the ideas bubbling up on the flip chart as our ideas, then I'm not going to kind of be stuck and clinging on to my idea. I don't need to win. I don't need to be right. I don't need to get the glory. I'm looking for the best outcome for the team or the company.
And that gives us more joy anyway, right?
Exactly.
What? Really?
Right.
It's no fun to just fight against each other and push back and forth. I mean, that's kind of our habitual way of living here in the West. But it's so gratifying to have a collaboration and to work together. Like here we sit trying to put this podcast together, for the good of all and for, so that people can read your book and find out more about your work in the world. And, we have this one goal and we're collaborating together and it's so much fun. I just love sitting here.
Fun.
I mean, imagine if I had my agenda and you had your agenda, we'd never get any shit done.
No. No. And I think people start to, one of the things I always say when I'm teaching and coaching in mindfulness and compassion is don't take it from me. I'm not trying to convince you of anything. I don't want you to buy into anything. I want you to experiment. I told this group of leaders yesterday, you're the scientist and you're the subject. So we're going to do a bunch of things and you check in with your felt sense, your direct experience. That's what mindfulness is while you're doing it. And then you decide what you want to do after this leadership program. So that's the same. It's really the same point that you're making is that it's more fun. I think. And when people try collaboration instead of my way, or when they try being compassionate instead of being judgmental, they'll find that and the science backs it up that it's actually more gratifying.
Yeah, well, as Brene Brown says from all her extensive research, we are hardwired for connection, right? So just working together gives us that connection, and that makes us happy. So that's what I'm all about. Let's just be happy.
I know.
Cut to the chase and
let's just
and
do it.
Work
Let's
together.
strip away everything that blocks us from that.
Yeah. So good. So we've sort of laid out mindfulness, what mindfulness is, and why we should do it. Let's talk about the book. You have 50 chapters?
Yeah.
You tell us a lot. You give us a lot of information. So,
but they're not lengthy. So if anyone's kind of doing a big heavy gasp.
But I love how you break it down into home, work, play, love, and then the end of the day, the start of the day, and then the end of the day. So we can, no matter where we are, we can plug in and get your best advice. Do you want to just give us a couple of little nuggets, maybe? Would that be a good way to start?
Yeah, and I do love this orientation, which really came from the vision of Hilary Black at National Geographic to take readers through a day. So I really applaud that. And then I laid in using a famous quote that if we balance the realms of home, love, and work and play, we've really got, that's really the formula for a happy life. Mm-hmm. So let's start with home. For many of us, in the morning, it can be very frenetic. If there's little kids at home, or even if there's not, we're kind of flying around and gathering ourselves and getting out the door. And the first chapter is one of my favorite, and that's called Wake Up to Joy. And that really comes from with intention and practice, which is positive habits and rituals that we start to weave into our day, we can actually wake up and orient our minds to gratitude and joy and appreciation. And that can start even before we step out of bed. So some of us kind of wake up and the first thing we do is reach for our phone and check email, and then we start immediately, content and to-dos are planted in the head. Or we wake up and we start like spinning and ruminating on all the things we have to do that day or didn't get done the day before, or whatever it might be. So waking up to joy is actually how to start the day in a with peace and gratitude.
Beautiful.
And I love that one. And then there's other pieces of the morning section are really about how to weave in practices and structures and habits that help you strengthen a positive outlook and drop into insight and presence using journaling. Or if you're an exerciser in the morning, how you can use exercise as a mindfulness practice. And for those of us who shower in the morning, how we can bring our 5 senses into the shower and then convert our shower, which might be, just another task, another to-do in the morning, into kind of a mini spa where we can be present with aroma and the felt sensation of temperature and water and all the senses. And that's mindfulness. And, one of the things many people don't realize is that the senses bring us into the present. That's a secret way to be present in any moment is to use one of your 5 senses.
So right now, in this very moment, give us...
So right now I'm going to pick up this delicious tea that you made for me.
Okay.
And as I smell it, as I inhale it, I'm using the sense of smell. I can only smell in the present. I can't smell in the past or the future. So as I do this tiny micro act of smelling, I'm in the present. Or if I sip the tea, the taste of this delicious tea and the blend of herbs is a present moment experience. So I don't have to take out a meditation cushion and get out some beads and light a candle. I can have my morning tea or have my morning coffee and have a moment of mindfulness.
I already do that. I got it. I'm already
Check.
doing that. Yeah, check. I like it. Beautiful. So there's so much more in that chapter, and I just love that you go into such detail. Where does all your I know you have stories in here and you have research and you back it all up. Like where does all this wealth of knowledge come from? Just share with us a little bit about.
Well, I was so fortunate to be one of the first 30 teachers with Google's Search Inside Yourself Leadership Institute. Actually, I should correct that. The Leadership Institute does not belong to Google, but Employee 107, Chad Ming Tang, was the person who had the idea to create a wonderful 2-day program called Search Inside Yourself for his colleagues at Google. And out of that, incredible program that I still teach around the world, he decided to, with some funding, start an outside institution. So that group was founded by a neuroscientist at Stanford and some other really smart and very plugged in researchers. And we were rigorously trained in the science of mindfulness and compassion, that cohort of 30. And then those training programs continue. And that's kind of where it started. And then I went on to become a senior fellow at George Mason's Center for the Advancement of Well-Being and continue to be a student and to be deeply connected to the research that is coming out at a huge, very rapid rate now. It's really changing year by year.
So here's the thing, Lori, as we sit here and talk, I mean, isn't it just sitting down and shutting up? I mean, how much, can you just expound upon that? Like, how much more do we really need to know about mindfulness so that we can begin to live a more intentional and mindful life?
Thank you. I really appreciate that question. So some people think let's talk about what the difference between meditation is and mindfulness. Okay. So meditation is a wide and extensive family of mental training practices or mind-body exercises to help me both strengthen the circuitry in my mind and my body to be able to focus and sustain attention and regulate emotions and know myself, self-awareness. So meditation are a set of exercises and mindfulness is the outcome. Mm-hmm. So just like sports are a set of exercises and the outcome is fitness. And you could say, well, don't I just have to sit down and eat, one plate of spinach and do a couple push-ups and I'm fit? And you could say, well, maybe, but there's a lot more you could learn and a lot more you could do as a practice. So with mindfulness, there's really a set of principles, of mindsets or attitudes that we train in. So we train in how we see the world, how we see ourselves, how we interact with others. So there's a lot of rich content in all those principles. And I've chosen 10 principles and put them in the introduction of the book. And then I weave those throughout the book. In addition to that, there's a set of practices. Those are the practical things that I'm actually doing with my mind and body to come into the present, to calm my emotions, to open my heart so I can listen to you, even if I think you are completely wrong about something. So there's practices and there's mindsets, and there is a wealth of content and exercises in those domains.
Is this something, Lori, that we have lost throughout the years? Like years and years ago when we were ancient humans and we lived closer to the earth and we were there were maybe less people and do you think we had it then? I mean, think about like some of the spiritual masters maybe, or
the Native Americans,
absolutely,
and
Buddhists,
I write, if you read, blurbs about the book or descriptions or things, I talk about this as the intersection of ancient contemplative wisdom and practices with modern science and positive psychology. So definitely the content of these principles and ways to cultivate awareness and stillness and acceptance and seeing the world as impermanent is one of the principles. This is universal law. This is universal truths that are practiced across religions and traditions, across geographies, and for for centuries. So you're absolutely right. I think the challenge is that in today's modern world where we sit in windowless rooms and we spend more time indoors, and now we're tempted by smartphones and access to a Netflix movie whenever I want it at my fingertips, it's really hard to go out and take a walk for people and to connect to the wisdom of the trees and to regulate emotions just by being in nature. I have 2 chapters in the book on getting outside and being in nature. It's so important. So that's just one element is nature. But you're right. I think we've lost it, and this book is helping us find it again.
Good, good. And I'm also seeing a movement just in the spiritual communities and in the mindfulness communities from going from the head to the heart.
Yeah.
And I know you have a big heart, and you're so compassion-based. Can you talk about that a little bit? Like how this can help us connect more with our that love that is who we are. I believe we're love, and we are meant to connect with each other through our heart centers, not through our our heads and our intellects and our.
Oh, I just love that. I think part of it is our Western conditioning, the way we're educated to learn and memorize, and it's very cognitive focused. And in our culture here, we're very much trained, kind of from the neck up. That is shifting in schools now, but we're trained in the neck up, and we're rewarded with report cards and degrees and job titles and all that stuff for what we know in our heads. That's part of it. And the other part is we get conditioned. We have experiences as kids, and we cultivate strategies and ways to protect ourselves, to retreat, or to make up stories about who we are or who other people are. And we get trapped in all that noise, all that head noise. And a lot of what I'm sharing in the book and in our workshops and retreats is how to drop out of the head and into the body. So I spent the weekend with Richard Strozzi Heckler from Petaluma in his program, which is about embodied leadership. And it's really teaching, using the art of Aikido and bringing the intersection of body practices with mindfulness to help us get out of the head into the body. And when you talk about the heart, that is, I believe too, that we're love. And if we can get out of this all this noise and being the spectator of our thoughts and drop into this place of love, which is we associate with being in our heart, which is in our body, then we start to immediately feel differently. And so that sounds really great in theory. What I've done in the book is shared practical house 2 steps of how do you drop out from the head into the heart. Like, what precisely do you do? So
I love that. Yeah, you have a whole chapter on it.
We just need to make that part of how we show up with people.
And it's interesting. Well, you have some advice for forgiveness, generosity, touch with presence, and then the final section in that love chapter is be open to grief. Can you talk about that a little bit? Just because I wrote the book on it.
Absolutely, you did. And it was interesting. In my original book proposal, I didn't have that chapter, and then I added it later. And both of us have the experience of having someone very close to us die. And I've one of the stories in that chapter is losing my brother Johnny, who was my soulmate, and we told everybody we were twins. We were 2 years apart. And I realized that my training before I lost him, I had been training and practicing in mindfulness for 10 years. And I realized that mindfulness, the ability to recognize my emotions, the tsunami waves of grief that would wash over me, and just recognize them as, okay, here they are. Sadness is here in a big, deep way in this moment, and not try to push it away or suppress it, or not try to, dive into a bottle of Chardonnay or rationalize it or whatever I might whatever refuge I might look for, and just to allow that grief to be there, and then to use sort of a reframing way, a perspective shift to say, this deep, I'm just feeling it right now in my body, this deep sadness that I feel when I think about losing Johnny is really directly related to the depth of our love. So I started, when I would feel that wave wash over me, I would say, there's that love that Johnny and I have together. Here it is, right here. I feel it big time. So I started to embrace the sadness as love. And that really helped me. And that's why I put that as the final chapter in the love section, because it gave me the emotional capacity. And I actually tapped into love to navigate the grief.
Beautiful. That's very healing, and it goes back to our mindfulness is the first step in releasing pain points.
Yeah.
So there you go. It all comes full circle. Well, so exciting that you have so many great ideas for us, and you even have. I know a lot of people have trouble with that bedtime routine and sleep. So many of my yoga students talk about, especially at a certain age. They wake up and they just can't go back to sleep.
Yes. That's
so
not uncommon.
Yeah, it's not. And these practices can be really helpful.
Yeah.
So I offer a little.
Yeah. Well, one of my favorite. Well, there's actually two that I have. So I have a chapter on a bedtime routine, and then one called Ease into Sleep. That's the very last chapter of the book. So two that I really love and recommend. One is called the body scan. It's a very well-known practice where we systematically move through the body, bringing attention to one part of the body at a time. And it's not a thinking thing. It's really bringing that beam or that flashlight of attention, say, to the top of your head, to your face, to the top of your shoulders, moving down to the chest, to the tummy, to the legs, just slowly. I'm doing it quickly, but slowly bringing attention to each part of the body, seeing what you notice. When I do this with my daughter, we'll even add gratitude to that. Like, thank you, head, for all the thinking you did in middle school today. Thank you, feet, for the volleyball practice after school. So we'll combine a relaxation of each part of the body with gratitude. And that giving your mind something to rest on. So the mind is racing. Our mind is wandering 47% of the time. That's Harvard research. So when we lay down at night, usually it is ping-ponging all over the place, or if we wake up in the middle of the night. So we just use the body scan to systemically give the mind something to rest on and a focal point, and also relax the body. And then the second practice, do you want to hear that one that I love?
Can we just pause for a minute?
Yeah.
Because there's something really magical about that body scan. I do it with my yoga students. I started to say my yoga kids. My yoga students, I have like seniors. And just last night I did a body scan in a chair yoga class. And I could see them just drop in. And as soon as you bring your awareness, like I say, my shoulder's been bothering me. As soon as I bring my awareness to that shoulder, it just softens.
Yes.
It's amazing.
It's amazing.
Just try it. If you guys are listening, just try it. Bring your awareness to just a certain part of the body.
Yeah.
And you notice immediately the softening.
It's a self-care practice too. It's a way to be kind to ourselves. When I guide people to bring awareness to the top of the back, the middle back, and then the lower back, we say, give your back the kind attention that it deserves. And often we'll bring awareness to the back, and then people will notice that there's a big knot that they didn't even know because they're plowing through the day with the laptop on the shoulder. And so it's also a way to just tune into the body and know and figure out what's going on there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, it is a magical practice.
It is. Okay, the other one. Go to the other one.
And the other one that I love comes from a traditional practice called loving kindness meditation. In the corporate workplace, we call it offering kindness.
You can't call it loving kindness in the workplace.
It's hard for, the senior leaders of the business to sign up for that program. But once they get there, they love it. But that's really what we're doing. And loving kindness is about systematically offering good wishes to ever widening circles. So you start with yourself, and you can say, and for some people that's hard. So let's do this one. Let's start with someone that you love, that's very easy to love. Maybe it's a child or a grandmother, or it's not very complicated. And you just bring that person to mind. You see their face in your mind's eye. You imagine them smiling at you, and then you offer them good wishes. May you be peaceful. May you be happy. May you be well. May you be loved. So you offer those, and then you offer it to a little wider group, maybe everybody in your family, and then you repeat the phrases. And then you go one circle out, maybe everyone in your community or your workplace. And then you can keep going out, and if you're so bold, you can go, you can go all the way to, everybody in the whole world, all sentient beings, all animals, all people in the world. And that rhythmic, systematic way of offering kindness not only activates the positive centers of our brain associated with love and belonging and well-being. So we actually, if we were worrying 5 minutes before, that's activating the negative centers. We actually shift the activity of the brain to the positive. But we open the heart. When you mentioned how do you open the heart, this is how you do it. And we just feel good. And if you make those circles, fine enough, then you'll probably drift off to sleep while you're doing it. Right. But it's so nice to drift off to sleep doing that instead of replaying a meeting from earlier that day.
It's the same principle as praying for someone, or saying your bedtime
prayers.
Yeah.
And what I love is that people often bring up prayer. Sometimes when I pray in the evening, I pray in a less systematic way. I'm thinking of different people, I'm thinking of different situations, and I'm praying. And I can sometimes slip into worry or rumination. I can get into my head. My mind can wander. I'm no longer praying. I'm working out a problem. When I was a kid, and we still do this at home, I prayed in a very systematic way. Now I lay me down to sleep, and then we went through each people like in a row, right? And we do that with Ava.
God bless mommy and
that's
daddy.
it.
Yeah.
And it's so neat. That's what I'm saying. It's like a coming back to some contemplative practices because that, there was a lot to that, because having that rhythm and that structured way of praying is actually very calming and helps us stay focused on what we're doing and not have our mind wander all over the place. So prayer will do that too. It's absolutely highly recommended.
Yeah. And it's a good segue, because if someone is listening and they belong to a particular religious community, mindfulness does not take away from that. In so many ways, for me, it deepens it. And I've taught mindfulness at our church, and I've noticed that more and more churches and temples are bringing mindfulness practice into the services.
Yeah, it's I'm a student of Tara Brock and Jack Cornfield, and I was with them in the Redwoods at 1440 Multiversity in November, and we had a topic on prayer in our mindfulness retreat we were doing. And I stood up, I had the mic, and there were 300 people there, and I talked about the intersection of my prayer life and my relationship with God and mindfulness and meditation. Because so many people think that they're not overlapping, or that they're different, or they're fearful. There's still a lot of people that talk to me that they're fearful that mindfulness is some kind of sect or some kind of thing that will take them away from their walk with whomever they're walking with, depending on their religion. And I stood up and said, actually, mindfulness, the capacity to train my attention to focus on something I want to focus on and sustain it without my mind wandering, opening my heart, learning how to notice when I'm judging and to suspend that has deepened my ability to pray. Because when I learned to pray as a kid, and I grew up in the church, they never taught us how to pay attention and sustain attention. And that's still not something that, you read in the Bible or the Quran. So this is a supplemental set of skills that strengthen our capacity to be present, I love that. Thich Nhat Hanh wrote a book, Living Buddha, Living Christ, and I read that like 20 years ago. And they're really complementary. And I bought a necklace at a Thich Nhat Hanh monastery, a Buddhist monastery, and it says, "Be still and know," which is a teaching that comes from the Bible. It's a Bible verse, and it's also a Buddhist principle.
It's from the Psalms, right? Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, it just occurred to me that we've touched on mind and how the mind works in the realm of mindfulness, and we've talked about spirit. Maybe we can talk a little bit about how, I'm sure you go over it in here. I'm not sure which chapters it in, but let's talk about the body, because Happy Healthy You is all about balance in mind, body, and spirit. So how can mindfulness help us to achieve health in the body? We mentioned being in the body and the body scan and being more aware of the body, but think about something like eating. You mentioned showering, and you also have a little bit about sex in here. So pick your favorite.
Oh, I think all of those are my favorite. There's a couple things. One, mindfulness is about awareness or paying attention. And I know for me in my past, I'm a busy person. I enjoy doing a lot of projects. I'm creative. But when I get really busy, I can stop being aware of what my body needs. So mindfulness helps me deepen my self-awareness on how I am resourced, or what is my energy level in this moment. Do I need to eat something healthy? Am I hungry? Am I running on fumes? Am I not getting enough sleep? Am I tight? Am I not stretching out? Do I need to do some yoga?
Do I need a hug?
Oh, do I need a hug? Which releases oxytocin and makes it. That's one of my favorite, actually. So mindfulness, kind of step one, it helps us be really tuned into what our body needs. And then mindfulness is really about being able to be more choiceful. So instead of running on autopilot, I can use that awareness and make better choices. So I might say, instead of doing laundry and watching Netflix tonight, I think I'm going to do a half an hour of yoga. And I'll stop by the store on the way home and get some healthy food and make a really nutritious dinner and stretch out. And then get a really nice, long, cuddly hug.
Are you saying it's much easier with these practices to make those right decisions? Because I think we have the choice. We always have the choice to make, the good decision, or to buy the pizza, or we eat pizza in my house a lot because I have a couple of guys that really like it. But there is a choice. We could choose something a little more healthy. And are you saying it's easier to make the healthier choice with mindfulness?
Well, if you learn how to stop and pause in your day, we call that the mindful pause. Or purposeful pause. So now we're getting to the purpose part of the company name, Purpose Blue. We have to stop and connect to purpose. We have to stop and connect to our outcomes that we want in our life, or our goals or intentions that are bigger than that moment. So in that moment when I'm hungry, it might be really quick and easy, or it might be a habit. I've got the pizza guy on speed dial. I'm going to call him up. He's going to be here in 5 minutes. He'll say, "Oh, Laurie, it's you." Boom, here he comes. But that's very easy. A lot of my friends, they've got their favorite delivery has their credit card on file. Like, it's very easy. But mindfulness helps us stop and take that little breath, that little pause, and check in with ourselves and say, what action right now will keep you closest to your highest ideals, or get you closer to your purpose? So if you're committed to losing weight, if you're committed to living longer or reducing your cholesterol, you got to have that little pause after that craving or after that impulse to make a good choice. That's one of the ways to make a good choice, is connecting the decision to something outside of that immediate gratification.
Which also goes for addictions of any kind, even,
It's huge in addictions.
Yeah. It's all good. It's all good. So what's the big payoff for you, Laurie? Like, the big payoff for you after all these years of studying mindfulness and really, really going deep. I mean, you are the expert, right? So this book, The Mindful Day, if somebody picks up this book and goes through it, they are tapping into all your wisdom that you've accumulated over all these years, and with all these great teachers, Pema Chodron, Thich Nhat Hanh, Tara Brach, Jack Kornfield, who else?
Yeah, no, those are my, and then Dan Siegel and Rick Hansen,
Right.
and the Richie Davidson, the neuroscientists. So I'm a student of the science crowd and the mindfulness, Buddhist crowd. I kind of bring it all in there.
Yeah, so this is just all these years that you've been putting all this together, compiling it into this beautiful book with this sunny, pretty. I love yellow. It's my favorite color. I love your cover page, your book cover. What is the big payoff for you having after all of this?
Gosh, I love that question, because a lot of people think it's about reducing stress or something, and for some people it is, but for me it's about joy. So I live more and more of my life in joy. So I'm able to recognize when I'm caught up in thinking that's making me miserable or suffer. If the inner critic, is loud in my head, or scolding me for a ball that I dropped or a mistake I made, I can hear that more consciously. I'm more of a witness to the patterns in my mind and my behaviors, and I'm able to meet that, not by stuffing down that inner critic, but by just befriending it and just saying, okay, I hear you, thank you, and just shifting into what's beautiful and what I'm grateful for in the moment. So joy and happiness are skills. They can be learned. We can learn how to shift into happiness and connection in any moment. It's not due to external things, whether we win the lottery, where we live, what kind of car we drive. It's really due to our capacity to direct the orientation of our mind and heart in any moment. And what I've noticed is I live with more ease, more grace. I'm more connected to myself and what matters. I'm more easily connected to the other people around me. And that's, to me, what it's all about. I make choices that, where I can serve others, and serving and generosity and compassion are totally connected to well-being.
Beautiful. And as I move into my wisdom years, I call them my wisdom years, this is where I want to be, right?
Yeah.
And I think so many of us, the baby boomers, the population that is on the other side of 50, I mean, this is maturity. This is maturity at its best, right?
Yeah,
spiritual
at its
maturity.
best.
So thank you for this book. I'm so excited for it to come out.
you.
We still have a few weeks, but we can pre-order it.
Pre-orders are so important, Connie. This is my first book, and what I've learned is that these days, it's all about how many people are ordering, right when the book launches. So anybody who pre-orders now on Amazon or Barnes & Noble or wherever you like, I really appreciate it. And you can join my mailing list at lauriejcameron.com, LauriejCameron, and find out about, pre-order gifts and different things I'm running, because, that and Amazon reviews are so important. So please, if you get the book, please just drop a line onto Amazon. And it's so hard for me to make these requests, but I'm learning.
Yeah, it's important because it gets the word out. And also your website, you might want to mention that, because you will be doing some retreats and some workshops, and you're available to speak on this. So where can they find more information about you?
At Purpose Blue, PURPOSE Blue, one word, purposeblue.com. And that's where you can contact me for speaking engagements and retreats and all kinds of experiences, coaching. So I just love to bring this to people in wherever they might be, their roles, their companies, their teams, because that's my mission, is to help people live with more ease and more joy.
Me too, girl.
That's why we connect the way we do.
That's why we connect. So here's the book, The Mindful Day, beautiful cover, practical ways to find focus, calm, and joy from morning to evening. So you can just spend your whole day with Lori if you've got this book. Thank you so much.
Let me say one more thing. For those of your listeners, I'm sure they're all over the planet, but for those of you who are in D.C. and Maryland, I will be at Politics and Prose on Connecticut Avenue on March 31st, and I'll be in Frederick, Maryland at the Curious Iguana on April 3rd. They're doing a co-event with a meditation mindfulness studio.
Very cool.
So come see me there. I'd love to meet you and tell me that you're a listener of Connie Bowman, and I'll give you an extra long hug.
Yeah, okay. I like that. And then maybe we'll put together some kind of a workshop where we have yoga and
Connie and I are already planning some kind of special day-long retreat.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Lori.
Yeah, it was so great to be with you.
And we get to finish our tea together, so
yeah.
Awesome.